Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Dr. Jessica Zadinak, and I am owner and chief research officer of ARAC. We have a fantastic team of PhD level scientists, executive teams, statisticians, survey methodologists conducting independent third party research to support industry with their PMTAs, innovation, product development, and MRTPAs. I am super excited to be able to present to you today, and I am also bummed, and I'm sorry that I cannot be there in person to meet you all face to face. I do look forward to continuing this collaboration with Two First and others in the industry and meeting you all face to face in China in the coming months. So let's get started. Quickly, just a disclaimer, the findings or any information that's presented in here, the presentation, that's all publicly available resources and information. Many of the discussion points, they're going to be my thoughts and expert recommendations, having been in the industry for slightly over 10 years now and seeing the evolution of the market and the PMTA and authorization processes. And certainly nothing in this presentation is intended to promote a brand, a product category, or a product. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk about first whether or not there may be changes to the PMTA process in 2025, some preparations that Chinese manufacturers may want to consider for 2025, and really how ARAC could help you in achieving the success of the PMTA and the authorization. So just quickly here, as many of you know, the path to market internationally is much quicker than the pathway to market in the United States. And so in many other countries, manufacturers will look for a gap in the market and they will look for consumers' unmet needs or wants. They may or may not do consumer research to test their product, their prototypes, their concept. They'll do maybe 1 or 2 months of some hard science testing. And typically there's then check boxes in an application in it to go into then a regulatory body that then gets approved and then on market. In the United States, as many of you know, that is not the process. In the US, we really have a foundation and the biggest focus on the appropriate for the protection of public health standard. And because of this, there are many various aspects of science that need to be considered in order for the federal government, the FDA, CTP, to authorize a product to market. What we have been seeing, and again, this is also with my 10 years of experience in the industry, it was a market that was dominated by combustible cigarettes. There was the Tobacco Control Act was implemented, a variety of different regulations, changes, considerations of the TCA and the PMTA and guidances have happened all along the way. And where it is now really is many manufacturers who have the most success, long-term success from a business and bottom line standpoint, but also from a successful authorization standpoint, will conduct some innovation and product development research for 1-2 years before even considering the PMTA science. Once they consider the PMTA science, that's probably going to be 1 to 2 years of conducting that research. Then the application is submitted. What has been happening recently, as many of you know, is that application just sits, and as some people say, it's a black hole. It sits for years prior to even having confirmation by the FDA that they have received their application and that it's under scientific review. So you could sit there for years and not really know the status of your application. Then if you have received a notice that you are under scientific review, that can also take an additional several years. And so some in industry are looking at 5, 6, 7 years where their application has been submitted and still hasn't received authorization. This is going to be a really important point that I transition to in just a minute about what does 2025 look like compared to what we have known to be the product pathway to market in the US in the past years. So in 2025, the main focus here is, does the opportunity in getting a product to market, does it change? And the main reason we're going to talk about this, and that many people have been talking about it, is because of the change in the federal government and who is basically controlling our House and our Senate and our presidential administration. But let's do a quick comparison. So in 2020, 2024, these aspects I'm going to mention here are not necessarily directly tied to the fact that we had a Democratic-led presidential administration. And so, but what I am going to cover are some of the, quote, truths that I have seen from the outside, serving as an independent third party to industry and to the government and to regulatory consultants, what we have seen the past 4 years. First of all, it's really important for everyone to know and keep in mind that the CTB, the Center for Tobacco Products, is a new center within the federal government. When you look at the other centers under the FDA, they have been around for much longer, and therefore their infrastructure has developed and is sustainable, and they can know what to expect on a year-to-year basis. That is not the case for CTP. They are a new center. Consider this and then combine it with the fact that in one day, they received millions of applications to review. That's just in one day. Now, in totality, in the past 4 years, they've received even additional millions of applications. So you have a new center, not as much infrastructure in place. You have millions and millions of applications flooding the center. That is sure to end in, somewhat of a disaster like we have seen over the past several years. So along the way, the past 4 years, we have seen, again, externally from an independent third-party perspective, many companies and manufacturers and consultants in the industry struggle to understand what is needed to receive authorization. They've struggled to understand the specifics of what the PMTA guidance is calling for. And we'll transition here in just a minute to 2025, where I do believe that gap has fundamentally closed. What else have we seen? We've seen the first flavored ends product authorized, so a menthol flavored product. We've seen a lot of discussion, not any formal definitive progression on finalization, but a lot of discussion on proposed rules and proposed standards. Most recently, we saw the standard for the nicotine content. We've also had a lot of chatter here about the flavor ban in various aspects of nicotine tobacco products. We've seen a huge expansion of the illicit market and the illegal market. Excuse me. And I like to refer to those as different because in one aspect, products are coming over into the United States among companies who have absolutely no intention to follow through in the PMTA process or to conduct the right science that's needed. They just want to make a quick, some quick money and then get out of the market. And they don't mind if they are ever caught or not. And then there's also companies who are looking at the US market. They're finding the products that consumers are purchasing, where they can make money, and then they're basically creating counterfeit products and getting them over into the United States. We talk with thousands and thousands of US consumers a year, and I understand the one side of it, that these companies know that these products are what the consumers in the US want. And so they are meeting a demand. But at the same time, there are other players and manufacturers who also know that, but who are doing it, quote, the right way and through the proper channels of the PMTA. And so we've seen just a huge expansion. Anywhere you go in any city, there are going to be ends products that are being sold at various retail shops, on the side of the street in some cities. And we know that those are, quote, illegal or illicit products because they don't have a PMTA and authorization. We've had the past 4 years the Democratic-led government and their associated appointees, which is a very important point because typically the type of government or political system that is in charge will appoint leaders to a lot of the federal government centers that are that have consistent viewpoints of oneself. And so we will see how in 2025 this will change due to the Republican-led administration. We've also seen As I just mentioned, years of application, years for applications to be accepted, or to receive any type of notification from the FDA that they've even received your application or that it's there. Because of the consumer demand, we've seen a lot of companies find loopholes to getting their products over here and on the market. Some of these have no intention to go through the PMTA pathway, but then there are others that absolutely do. But what they're doing is they see that the process the FDA has set over the past several years, it's not sustainable. And it's fundamentally wrong in their eyes. And so they are meeting the consumer's needs while simultaneously conducting the science that's needed. But at the end of the day, the FDA has to be able to see that you are selling a product that is a PPH for the public health. And we've also seen in 2024 the joint task force of many different centers across the federal government to stop these products from coming into the United States. In 2025, how I in my viewpoint, thinks it's going to be shaken up. We know that CTP has caught up almost to the backlog of PMTAs that they needed to review. That has huge implications for manufacturers in 2025. What that means is if their backlog is now caught up, one would anticipate that manufacturers can start to see a much quicker process of receiving feedback from the FDA that they have, one, received their application, two, it's going to go under scientific review, and then three, that full review. In the 180 days that's in the statute, I do believe by the end of 2025, we are going to see the FDA, CTP, be able to function under that time period. And again, we'll get to why this is very important in a few slides. I think in 2025, most manufacturers that we work with, most clients, they come to us because they know we understand the standards, and we have a great relationship with the FDA. I was in the federal government before going into industry. I know how it functions. I know kind of how they think. And so really being able to bridge those things together is what makes us most successful. And being able to understand what those standards are that the FDA is looking for in your application is very important. So I believe the industry is really going into 2025 with just a much better place as far as understanding what's needed to get an authorization. There has been some discussion about changes to the review process. There's been many experts, there's been many people lobbying the federal government for a total revision to the process of PMTA review. I don't know where that stands, but I do know that many people are going to continue advocating for that. I also believe, given the Republican-led administration now and where he stands, we are going to see a huge crackdown at the border, huge. I believe it's going to be two major fundamental actions. I think one, as I just mentioned, applications are going to start being reviewed as they should. This president is very pro-business, very pro-market-driven success. And so he is going to want to see, in my opinion, the actual process of CTP being done in the time it should be done. But at the same time, he's going to crack down on the products coming in overseas if they are not authorized to be on the market. And I'm happy to share this presentation with you afterwards. I know there's probably going to go over my time here, so I do apologize. But we look forward to actually publishing something a little more in detail related to this with TwoFirst in the next coming, hopefully, several weeks. But a few major items here, what the Chinese manufacturers, what all manufacturers should know. I do believe most of you already know the PMTA pathway. It requires extensive resources, extensive planning, time, money, experts. Begin planning well in advance. Have your right team of experts that has shown you that they have had success before with authorizations, and that will lead to having you have the most success. The PMTA application, I think most of you know, it's data driven. It is product specific driven. The more data you can give them that is product specific, the higher chances. You've got to be able to demonstrate the very basic hard science, safety data, toxicological, the ingredient assessment, risk assessments. That is a base minimum. And if you do not meet those standards in the beginning, there is really no reason to go on into our modules of 5 and 6 where you're assessing switching, because the FDA will look at it and say, well, your product contains X, Y, and Z, which we know is very bad for human consumption. And so know the types of data, know the stage at which you should test and obtain that data in your application, so you're not spending millions of dollars doing a study that ultimately won't go anywhere because you're dealing with a product that has ingredients that it shouldn't. They want to see a complete picture, right? So they want to see your product specific data. They want to see maybe your competitors. They want to see other brands on the market. They're happy to look at other country data, but really from a secondary standpoint, they really want, when it comes to human behavior and your consumer, they need that to be among the US population. So they expect to see a complete picture of all investigative data, including the scientific and the public literature, including from the tobacco control and those that are fighting against industry in the US. Their research also matters and needs to be considered. Early engagement, that is very important. So we always recommend a pre-submission meeting with the FDA to go over your PMTA strategy and make sure there are no major holes and major gaps in what you're going to do before you go and spend millions and millions of dollars doing it. Quality management cannot be overstressed. Ensuring that your manufacturing processes are up to regulation, up to standard. You're conducting research in laboratories with CROs that have the proper accreditation and for example, with us, good clinical practice when we're conducting clinical research studies. We have to make sure that we are following the standards the FDA does themselves when they conduct the research. There's no reason why industry can't match those standards as well. Obviously, making sure that you are submitting all of the proper forms, that information's been translated to English, and some of these very basic aspects that are more administrative are also very important. So one of the last 2 points here, very important. There's this notion that we've heard through the grapevine the past several months, that you can just submit this paper application, very basic, no science. I'm going to get this STN number. It's going to allow me to import my products to the United States, and it's going to allow me to sell my products. That is not a viable pathway for success. There are many who may want to make a quick amount of money. And if that is what an individual or company chooses to do, that is what they choose to do. Those are not individuals that AREC works with. The STN, while that has worked for people in the past and companies in the past, I believe in 2025, we're going to see a crackdown at the border. And because of that, they are going to look very specifically at the STN, at the applications, and to know whether somebody is just trying to find the loophole and get it into the US, and they're submitting a generic application, and they have no intention of conducting the science. We do work with folks who say, I understand that there's an STN. I want to do a bunch of science. Maybe I want to do 6 months of the data out of a 9-month study, and I want to submit it. And then I want to keep going and then add the 3 months to get my product there and to be able to start generating money. There's always that fine line and very delicate balance there, because our job as scientists is to make sure that we are protecting the public health. And that means we're, making sure the product that goes on the market for human consumption is going to be, quote, safe for human consumption. And oftentimes we assess that relative to combustible cigarettes. But it is not a viable pathway for long-term success. And I can almost promise you that if I could predict the future, those individuals will be first to be coming after by the government and the enforcement agencies. Turning quickly then to, how we could assist many of you in success moving forward. So we are a social and behavioral science research firm rooted in experience within the federal government, applied research settings in academia, as well as the industry, which really makes us a unique entity. We take part and partner with folks in the beginning at innovation and product development stage, where you have a prototype and you're iterating and it's rapid. We then work with companies to develop a regulatory strategy that's most appropriate for that specific type of product. We then conduct the studies under modules 5 and 6. We also have legal partners that we work with to ensure that your regulatory strategy is going to meet the standards and really the past record of success for other companies. We also provide the post-market support, so the post-market surveillance system that's required by the FDA. We have extensive experience there. And then certainly after project completion, we typically love to do this loop again and to develop the relationships with people that will hold steady and true over time. So just really quickly, what do we mean by innovation product development at ARAC? Rapid iterative feedback. We understand that time is of essence. When you think you have a product, the beginning stage that's going to be groundbreaking or monumental to consumers in the industry, you need to have quick feedback. So we're going to consumers quickly, and we're coming back to our clients quickly saying, this change should be made and here's why. We understand the consumer is at the focus of that process, because the consumer is going to be the one that makes you the money. They are going to be the one purchasing your product. We have a variety of different methods here. We conduct feasibility studies, concept testing, sensory product research with panels, and pilot testing right before going into launch of the full-scale scientific studies. Our core services, module 2 summaries. So we do a lot of the write-ups within the application, focused on then our research that we conduct in module 5 for the abuse liability studies and the PK studies, as well as module 6 studies. Our research firm is unique because we have everything we need in-house at ARAC for every single one of the module 6 studies. It's really important to our clients. We are able to give them really rapid results and feedback and quick changes because we have survey methodologists in-house, statisticians in-house, psychologists in-house, behavioral scientists, and the like. And the take-home message here is we believe there are 3 pillars that are required for success within this industry in receiving authorization. Your research, your innovation product development must start with the consumer and always keep your consumer in mind. You got to have the business strategy that is long-term, out for success in understanding your consumer, as well as that 3rd pillar, which is having those regulatory relationships and being able, as we do, to come, hand to hand with the FDA, with the regulator, as well as regulators worldwide. We conduct research internationally through cultural competency lenses to ensure that we're meeting the consumer where they're at. And those 3 pillars together have led to great success for us. And so just quickly, we have PMTA authorization, serving as a principal investigator on a TPPI study. We were myself participated in FDA's TPSAC for an MRTPA on a moist smokeless tobacco product. We've conducted a number of different human factors and label comprehension studies for all various types of nicotine tobacco products, all of which are still under consideration and scientific review by the FDA for authorization. We also have conducted and continue to conduct switching studies, again, all across diverse portfolios within the industry. And then finally, the TPPI studies we've conducted, and that was one in which I served as the principal investigator for the Verve successful application. And with that, I want to thank you so much for your time, and I do apologize for running over my allotted time, and look forward to meeting each of you in the future, and enjoy your new year while we enjoy kicking off ours. Thank you.